Okay, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm going to do a book showcase of things I found at a recent sale going on for the month of June in 2023. So I don't have a ton of books here today, but I definitely have found some interesting volumes to see. And if you're interested in buying one of these or just talking about it in general, feel free to leave a comment or check out below in the link for my eBay page. So let's begin. Okay, this book is interesting. This is something that's not entirely up my alley, to be perfectly frank, and it's kind of faded on the spine, but it is, let me show you. It's a book about western trout. It's in the Rocky Mountains, in this way, and by Sile McDowell, and it is a first edition, and it talks about his lifestyle and adventures on the rivers in the Rocky Mountain area. It is a first edition, 1948, so it's cool and just shows different illustrations and talks about tales of the time. So if you're in American folklore, this book is pretty interesting stuff. It's a good little volume. I'd be willing to give somebody a deal on it. Okay. Next book we're going to cover is in the same type of vein. Guide to State Parks of the United States and the Canadian provinces. And this is cool because this is like official guide, all illustrated, and it shows like different pictures. Let's see, maps, and it's got some glossy pages. So if you can get a good price on it, for sure, definitely a book that'd be interesting to look into. For myself, I've been more introduced to national parks and state parks in general, and this one covers the state parks, and they're just well worth going to and looking at for your summer times if you live in the United States or if you plan on traveling here soon. So, interesting book. Okay, next book I got. It's kind of interesting. It's called Junipero Serra. He was a Catholic missionary, part of the early Spanish missions. I believe he was one of the first saints or the founder of San Francisco. And this is a book talking about his lifestyle. It's published by a Catholic press, I believe. It's in good condition for the age. Let me flip it this way. So it's just kind of interesting. It's from the 50s. No major markings or anything. So if you're interested in this kind of like conquistador exploration kind of stuff or Spanish American history, definitely something to look into. Okay, this one I found more for myself, but it's the plays and Petersburg Tales of Nikolai Gogol, who is of course a famous author, a Russian author, early 1800s, famous for his work called Dead Souls, which was basically talking about the serfdom in Russia before the liberation in 1861 of the serfs. And so these are kind of like in the same type of category. And Gogol was kind of part of that emerging class of intelligista who was more open to criticize individuals like Alexander the First or Nicholas. So definitely an interesting piece of Russian literature. This book is kind of cool. It's Fluent in 3 Months by Benny Lewis. He is a famous polyglot here on YouTube, and he's from Ireland. He just kind of talks about his sort of philosophy and stuff. This book is actually getting a little bit older now, but very interesting. Just different, stories and things about language learning. So if you're interested in that topic, this may be worthwhile for you. Okay, now I got 2 books by the same author, and I've read this author before. And like most British and American authors of Russian topics, he is not without criticism, but I also think that there's a lot of value here. And this one contains, I have Robert Service's Lenin biography and Robert Service's Stalin biography, and I think they're very good for one volume studies into some of the most influential figures of the 20th century in Russia and elsewhere in the world. So if you're interested in that kind of topic, it's definitely something you would like to look into, along with more recent works of Russia. Okay, so we're going to put this back. This one kind of interesting, and it's got a little bit of wear to it, but I think it's just paper. This one is The Years of the Sword by Elizabeth Longford, and it's about Wellington and his fights against Napoleon. And I think, like I said, I think this right here is just paper, of course. And it has different things, aspects to it. I mean, this is a very nice cover. Let me go this way. With the coat of arms. And of course, this kind of talks about the different things, and it seems like a pretty solid one-volume biography of an important figure in British history. And then it has some of the campaigns, maps, and so forth. So, pretty interesting. Okay, next one is about the famous Dreyfus Affair. It's the Dreyfus case by, let's see, the author's name is Chapman. And basically the background of this is, I believe he was a Jewish officer who was blamed by another officer for doing some impropriety, and it was basically a show trial, and a lot of cultural figures like Emile Zola were imparted to put their opinions out there about how the injustice of the government was forced towards it, the French government, that is, of the Second Republic. And a lot of cultural change and anxieties came about this case, and it became way bigger than the government or the military ever wanted it to be. So, very interesting time at the end of the 19th century for the French. Okay. Let's see. Okay, this one is interesting. It's by Shearer, the one who wrote The Decline and the Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, and it's the collapse of the Third Republic. Still keeping on that French theme. Oh, let me try to get a better angle. An inquiry. So it's trying to examine. He was a journalist who was stuck in Berlin during the Second World War, and it discusses the kind of rationales and ideas that were going on in France at the time and what could have been done differently in order to combat the Blitzkrieg or prepare, and how the figures like Batin betrayed the French people and so forth. So, interesting book, definitely not without criticism, because some of Shearer's work has been questioned, especially when it comes about Albert Speer and different things, but nonetheless, interesting piece. Let's see. A very nice volume of the brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky's last work. I believe he wrote this when he was, 40, no, he might have been 50 years old. This was the last major novel he did, I believe. And some argue it's his masterpiece. This is a very nice volume, printed in New Jersey. It has some illustration. Garden City, New Jersey. Let's see, pull it up. Come on. 53, yeah. Oh, this one's not illustrated. Interesting. But anyways, a lot of them are from this time period. I just think it's a very nice volume. If you're interested in this, I'd be willing to make a deal. Okay, and the last book I got for today, well, actually I got one more, is this is the second volume of the Patent Papers. So this is going to cover the ideas and correspondence of General George S. Patton and the World War II period of world history, of course. And Patton, of course, is a very, I don't want to say eccentric, but steadfast character, very highly opinionated, real bookworm, kind of like a Winston Churchill type of person. So if you're interested in military history, definitely the Patton Papers would probably be up your alley. Okay, and the last book, which is ironic, I found lately, because I've been studying this recently, would be The Oxford History of Ancient Egypt by Ian Shaw. And this basically talks about the findings of, the dynasties and, how we can determine why certain religious practices were done under the first dynasty and how it changed over time. It talks about what pyramids were built when versus when. It discusses how the dialectic, the division between Horus and Seth and how that evolves into the Egyptian religion and the funeral rites and different things, and very fascinating amount of information we have about times that were 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. So, all right, everybody, thanks for watching this video. I appreciate your viewing, and like I said, if you're interested in any of this material, feel free to leave a comment or go to the link below. All right, thank you. Have a nice day.